If you know anything about wildfire fighting, you probably know Smokey Bear. Today we're meeting the bear himself and learning more about wildfire fighting.
The next time you come to the forest, do me a favor.
Smokey Bear is one of the longest-running public service campaigns in the world. He's appeared as Funko Pops, dolls, keychains, on board games, coloring books, you name it, he's probably appeared on it. Although Smokey Bear wouldn't be drawn until 1944, he actually originated in 1941. World War II was underway and the US was feeling the heat, so to speak, of some of the closest bombings to US soil the war would see. With firefighters and men currently serving in the Army, no one was left to deal with wildfires or fires ignited by possible bombings. This is when the Cooperative Forest Fire Prevention Program was initiated. The program focused on placing responsibility on citizens to prevent human-caused wildfires. But every successful campaign needs a mascot, right? For a short time, Disney's Bambi was that mascot. They soon lost the rights to Bambi, however, so on October 10, 1944, Smokey Bear was born from the mind of Albert Staley. And just to clarify, his formal name is and always has been Smokey Bear, not Smokey the Bear. In the 1950s, the between Smokey and Bear was added to get the proper rhythm for jingles, causing the confusion ever since. Smokey Bear hasn't always been a cartoon, though. In 1950, an orphaned cub saved from a New Mexico wildfire became the living iteration of Smokey and lived at the Washington, D.C. Zoo for about 26 years before his passing, but not after inspiring thousands of people to remain vigilant about fire and even adopting another orphaned cub with his mate, which would soon continue to uphold the Smokey legacy. The Smokey Bear campaign was so successful, however, scientists started to notice something they deemed the Smokey Bear effect. Basically, we were getting too good at stopping too many fires too quickly. Fire is a naturally occurring phenomenon on the landscape. Prescribed burns or naturally occurring fires are needed to reduce grass and brush, as if these are not controlled, fires can rage out of control when they are lit. As noted in a 2007 paper written by two USDA Forest Service researchers, the long-standing policy of aggressive wildfire suppression has contributed to a decline in forest health, an increase in fuel loads in some forests, and wildfires that are more difficult and expensive to control. Even into the 21st century, we can still find the mentality that all fires are bad, but we're beginning to find that prescribed fires are actually an effective management tool for foresters and wildfire fighters. Pennsylvania perhaps leads the nation in its understanding and use of prescribed fire. Because of the Smokey Bear effect, Smokey's message has turned more towards forest education and fire science, always returning to his slogan, "Only you can prevent wildfires."
Hello, my name is Smokey Bear, and this is my home. A place for you to climb, sleep, watch, and play, as long as it's not with matches. Only you can prevent forest fires.
By the mid-1800s in Pennsylvania, wildfires were a seasonal occurrence, which might be the reason they were largely unmentioned up until this time. Whether started as arson, as an out-of-control effort to clear land, or from makeshift lumber mills, or the sparks from passing railway cars, forest fires were burning hundreds to thousands of acres every year in Pennsylvania. The first major wildfire of mention occurred in 1875 in the town of Osceola Mills in Clearfield County, which burned to the ground. This fire left the town with over $2 million in losses at the time, burning over 200 homes and leaving 1,200 people homeless. Rudimentary wildfire laws existed in Pennsylvania as early as the 1700s, but it wouldn't be until the 1900s that laws and acts were officially passed to deal with wildfires in an official capacity. The 1909 Fire Warden Act allowed the creation of crews to fight fires led by a designated fire warden. Every one of these crews were there because they wanted the job, rather than having to tap someone on the shoulder or find someone off the street to lend a hand. In 1915, the Forest Fire Protection Law in Pennsylvania established a Bureau of Forest Fire Protection in the state and designated a Chief Forest Fire Warden, the first of which was George Wirt, director of the Mont Alto School of Forestry, better known today as Penn State Mont Alto.
My name's Mike Kern. I work for DCNR Bureau of Forestry, and I'm the Chief of the Division of Forest Fire Protection. I also serve as the Chief Forest Fire Warden for the Commonwealth, so I oversee the District Fire Wardens and the network of local forest fire wardens. There's been a real period of evolution of wildfire fighting in Pennsylvania. It goes back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. At the time, Pennsylvania was going through a pretty substantial period of logging and basically wholesale harvesting of timber on a statewide basis. The Industrial Revolution was going on, and Pennsylvania had a large resource of trees which could be used for lumber. You know, Pennsylvania was viewed as having this inexhaustible supply of timber, and it was, you know, cut on a wholesale basis at that time. What happened though was what was left behind was a lot of what we call slash, so debris left over from logging, this tree branches, stumps, all that stuff that wasn't used was left. And because all the trees were cut, there was large areas that were, that slash that was left could cure, and in dry periods it was really dry and susceptible to fires. And then you had things like steam locomotives, and a lot of steam engines were used in a lot of industrial uses. They would often put the sawmill right out in the woods and saw the timber into boards right there on the site. So there was a lot of human sources for wildfires, and then with all those conditions together, when it was dry, wildfires were almost ubiquitous in Pennsylvania in the spring at that time, and there were fires everywhere. And the situation got so bad where entire towns and villages were destroyed, and there was a lot of loss of life. There was concern about what was called a timber famine, where Pennsylvania would actually run out of wood and have to import wood from other states. So all those things came together, and basically the citizens demanded some kind of action, that somebody do something about these fires. And you know, at the time there weren't volunteer fire departments, there weren't paid fire departments. There were some in larger cities, but generally there was nobody really to put wildfires out or to stop them. So the Commonwealth stepped in. In 1895 there was a forestry commission created, and they had basically three goals: to preserve forest land, protect water quality, and put out fires, essentially, to prevent and suppress wildfires. And that was a slow to start process, but in 1915, there was a law passed in Pennsylvania and created our network of volunteer forest fire wardens that we have today.
Even though there is an official structure now to deal with wildfires, they could still be a dangerous occurrence. Perhaps one of the biggest and most famous wildfire disasters in the state was the Pepper Hill Fire.
October 19th, 1938, there were a fire in Cameron County called the Pepper Hill Fire, and on that fire, 8 members of the Civilian Conservation Corps lost their lives trying to put that fire out. The fire ended up being about 100 acres, and it wasn't a really large fire in the grand scheme of things, but it was a pretty significant event. You know, and there was a tragic loss of life, but also I think that foresters in Pennsylvania realized the need to have some kind of basic training for these people that are going out on fires, and to make sure that they're prepared and rested and have the proper equipment and leadership when they're being asked to do things. There is actually a historical marker that was placed in 2019 near the site, and you can still go visit it today.
Ultimately, lack of training, cohesion, and fatigue led to the death of 7 crew members and a crew leader who were trapped by the fire and unable to escape. The Pepper Hill Fire lives on as an important case study in what can go wrong when fighting wildfires. Today, wildfire fighting is much different than it was in the past, and we have experts trained to deal with these fires and state-of-the-art equipment to help them in that task. Forest management techniques have come a long way in the past 100 years. Modern forestry is conducted much safer, more scientifically, and more sustainably, addressing environmental concerns like erosion, food and shelter for wildlife, and better reproduction of key tree species along the way. As an example, often today we leave the treetops and slash as shelter for wildlife and to protect our regenerating trees. Modern forestry has a better understanding of what methods to use and how best to maintain or improve the health of our forests while creating the least impact on the land. Professional forestry and wildfire prevention go together. In fact, modern forestry is one of the best tools our foresters have to help prevent wildfires from even happening in the first place or reduce the chances of those fires happening. Fire can actually be one of those tools to help our foresters as well. Prescribed fires are often used to help burn acreage that should be burned or to meet other management goals. A well-maintained forest is a healthy forest, which means less forest fires. Relics of past forestry work even benefit fire suppression as well. Old logging roads and landings are sometimes used as fire breaks or can even improve access and response time to wildfires to help them be extinguished quickly.
The most frequent causes of wildfires in Pennsylvania are over 90% caused by humans. So it's often the number one cause we see as far as human causes is people burning debris at their house. So they're either burning trash or yard waste or brush or something they want to dispose of that they're not going to put in the garbage. So they burn it, and then they either don't take safety precautions or they pick the wrong day, the fire escapes, and then it turns into a wildfire.
Pennsylvania's wildfire history is extensive, and there's much more than we can cover here. Much of this history has been expertly compiled by Mike Klimkos in his 2017 book, The Fires of Penn's Woods. So if you'd like to learn more about Smokey Bear and wildfires, you can visit the Forest Heritage and Discovery Center at Caledonia State Park.
Only you can prevent forest fires. Only you.